There are parts of the ocean where the human body simply isn't meant to exist. It's easy to forget that, because from the surface, the ocean feels familiar, something we swim in, travel across, or look at from a safe distance. We've mapped parts of it, studied its wildlife, and given it names and boundaries. But that is a dangerous misunderstanding, because the real threat to your continued existence is more than the vastness of the deep or the teeth of a hungry shark. It's the existence of specific environments that seem to have been engineered for the sole purpose of ending a human life. Some of these places are so extreme that no human could ever reach them directly, and others are places you actually can get to, but you probably shouldn't. Welcome to the Wax and Vein Ledger, and today we're looking at parts of the ocean that feel less like environments and more like death traps. From underwater lakes that suffocate you to surface currents that can snap a steel hull like a dry twig, the ocean has several ways of reminding you that your presence is entirely optional. If you want to see how the ocean sets a trap in the dark, you have to look for the brine pools. These are essentially lakes at the bottom of the sea, and they are every bit as surreal as they sound. Because the water in these pools is 4 to 5 times saltier than the surrounding ocean, it becomes incredibly dense. It doesn't mix. It sits in depressions on the seafloor with a visible, shimmering shoreline that looks like a mirage. To a fish or a crab, it looks like a quiet place to rest. But these pools are concentrated pits of methane and hydrogen sulfide, and they contain absolutely zero oxygen. The second an unsuspecting animal swims across that shimmering boundary, its central nervous system shuts down. The salinity is so extreme that it triggers toxic shock almost instantly. Because there is no oxygen and the salt levels are so high, the bodies of the victims don't even decay. They just sit there, perfectly preserved at the bottom of a toxic lake under the sea, serving as a grim warning for the next creature that gets curious. And that same boundary applies to anything else that enters it, including humans. A human wouldn't be able to survive here directly, and we wouldn't even be able to reach this depth without protection. But if you were somehow exposed to the brine itself, the effects would be immediate. The water is chemically toxic and almost completely devoid of oxygen. Your body wouldn't be able to extract what it needs to function, and the exposure to hydrogen sulfide would begin interfering with basic biological processes almost immediately. It's not an environment a human body can tolerate, even briefly. The only reason we're able to observe these pools at all is because we stay completely sealed off from them, inside submersibles designed to keep the environment out. Not every part of the ocean is dangerous because of what it does to your body. Some are dangerous because of how isolated they are. There is a spot in the South Pacific known as Point Nemo, officially labeled the oceanic pole of inaccessibility. It is the farthest point from any landmass on Earth. If you find yourself bobbing in the water here, the nearest humans aren't the ones on the coast of Chile or New Zealand. They are the astronauts aboard the International Space Station, orbiting 250 miles above your head. This is the ocean's spacecraft graveyard, the place where retired satellites are steered to crash because there is almost zero chance of hitting a human being. There are no currents bringing nutrients to the area, so there is very little life. It is a biological desert of unimaginable proportions. Point Nemo doesn't need to poison you or crush you to be lethal. It just needs to exist. If you needed help here, you'd be better off calling for a ride from a passing comet than from the Coast Guard. Exposure and dehydration would finish the job long before a rescue ship could reach you, making it a place where the isolation itself is the primary cause of death. If you find that kind of psychological dread a bit too slow for your taste, you can always head straight down into the Mariana Trench. We like to talk about the crushing pressure of the ocean as a metaphor, but at 11,000 meters down, it becomes a very literal, very physical reality. The water pressure at the bottom is over 16,000 pounds per square inch. That is roughly equivalent to having an elephant stand on every single square inch of your body, including your eyeballs. Human biology is mostly water, which is incompressible, But our air-filled cavities, like lungs and sinuses, would be obliterated in a fraction of a second. Even the most advanced titanium submersibles have to be engineered with the precision of a Swiss watch just to avoid imploding into a ball of scrap metal. There is no light, the temperature stays just above freezing, and the environment is fundamentally incompatible with the concept of a human heartbeat. At this depth, survival isn't unlikely, it is a physical impossibility. But the ocean floor isn't always cold or quiet. In certain areas, the Earth's crust is thin enough for the internal heat of the planet to force its way through in the form of hydrothermal vents. These are massive chimney-like structures that spew water superheated to over 700 degrees Fahrenheit. Under normal circumstances, water at that temperature would be steam, but the intense pressure keeps it liquid. This water is a dense, mineral-rich mixture loaded with toxic chemicals, released in continuous high-temperature plumes. The heat alone is enough to cause severe damage on contact, and the surrounding water can shift rapidly from near freezing to extreme temperatures within a very small area. If a human were somehow exposed to this environment, even briefly, the results would be immediate. Direct contact with the vent fluid would cause rapid, severe burns, while the surrounding chemicals, particularly sulfur compounds, would begin interfering with the body's ability to function. There's no time to react, and no way to withstand it. These vents are surrounded by alien ecosystems that thrive on chemicals instead of sunlight, creating a world that feels like it belongs on a moon of Jupiter. It's a violent, unpredictable environment where the seafloor is actively releasing heat and toxicity into the water around it. The ocean is usually known for being cold, but this part clearly didn't get the memo. It represents a level of thermal aggression that very little on Earth can match. Most of the ocean's dangers are hidden beneath the surface, tucked away where you have to look for them. The Drake Passage is different. It puts its intentions right on display. Located between the tip of South America and the Antarctic Peninsula, this is the most treacherous stretch of water on the planet. Because there is no landmass at this latitude to break the wind or the currents, the Southern Ocean is allowed to build up a terrifying amount of momentum as it circles the globe. The result is a perpetual state of maritime chaos. Waves the size of office buildings are a standard feature of the landscape. Ships lose control, cargo is swept overboard, and the water temperature is cold enough to trigger cardiac arrest within minutes of immersion. If you were out here on the open deck of a ship, you wouldn't be standing for long. The motion alone would throw off your balance, and a single wave could knock you down or sweep you overboard entirely. And once you're in the water, there's no real recovery window. The cold shock is immediate. Breathing becomes erratic, muscles begin to fail, and within minutes, your body starts shutting down. Out here, nothing is subtle. The danger isn't hidden in the depth or the chemistry of the water. It's in the force of it, constant, visible, and impossible to ignore. These environments, the toxic pools, the abyssal trenches, the superheated vents, are a reminder that our survival depends on a very narrow set of conditions. Once you move outside of those conditions, the rules change quickly. The ocean doesn't adapt to you. Your body has to adapt to it. And in these places, it can't. It's an easy thing to forget when you're looking at a map. The blue areas feel open, almost empty, but they aren't. They're a collection of extremes, each one operating on its own terms, and none of them designed with you in mind. If you've enjoyed this tour of the places where your biology goes to retire, you're in the right place. We're always looking for the next corner of the world that refuses to play nice, and I'd love to have you along as we keep poking at the edges of the map. You can stick around by hitting that subscribe button. It's significantly safer than trying to cross the Drake Passage. I'm curious though, if you had to choose one of these places to visit in a perfectly safe, indestructible bubble, which one would it be? Would you want to see the brine pools or the black smokers of the vents? Let me know in the comments. Until next time, stay curious, stay observant, and maybe stay on the boat. the water is much more interesting from a distance.